Have you ever had a gut feeling that turned out to be right? Or felt your heart race before your brain even registered danger? Here's something that might blow your mind. Those aren't just figures of speech. You literally have three brains in your body: one in your head, one in your heart, and one in your gut. And they're all making decisions right now as you read this. Let me start with a number that stopped me in my tracks when I first heard it. Your gut contains around 500 million neurons. To put that in perspective, a dog's entire brain has somewhere between 400 and 600 million neurons in its cortex. Think about that for a second. Your intestines have roughly the same computing power as your golden retriever's whole brain. Your belly is literally as smart as your dog. But wait, it gets weirder. The second brain in your belly. Scientists call it the enteric nervous system, but I prefer gut brain because that's what it really is: a massive neural network wrapped around your intestines that can think, remember, and make decisions completely on its own. This isn't some new age concept. It's hard science, discovered by researchers who were just as surprised as you probably are right now. Picture this. If someone cut all the nerve connections between your gut and your brain, don't worry, nobody's suggesting this. Your intestines would keep working just fine. They'd still digest food, produce enzymes, and move everything along without any input from your head. That's because your gut brain is fully autonomous. It's like having a really smart assistant that doesn't need to check in with the boss. The structure of this gut brain is mind-boggling. Actually, scratch that, it's gut-boggling. You've got two main layers of neurons running from your esophagus all the way down to, well, the exit. The outer layer controls the muscle movements that push food through your system, that wave-like motion called peristalsis. The inner layer is packed with sensory neurons that detect what you've eaten and decide how to handle it. These aren't simple on-off switches either. Researchers have identified at least 20 different types of neurons in your gut, each with specific jobs. Some detect chemical changes, others respond to stretching, and some coordinate the whole orchestra. They use over 30 different neurotransmitters to communicate, the same chemicals your brain uses to think and feel. Here's where it gets really interesting. Your gut produces about 90% of your body's serotonin. You know, that happiness chemical everyone talks about? Yeah, most of it comes from your belly, not your brain. When people say they have a gut feeling about something, they're not being poetic. Their gut is literally processing information and sending signals that influence their mood and decisions. I remember the first time this really hit home for me. I was deciding whether to take a new job, and while my brain was making pro and con lists, I had this persistent, uncomfortable feeling in my stomach. Not nausea exactly, just unease. I ignored it, took the job, and it turned out to be a disaster. Looking back, my gut brain was probably picking up on subtle cues that my conscious mind missed. Maybe it was something about the interviewer's tone, or the office environment, or who knows what else. But my gut knew something was off. The heart that thinks. Now let's move up to your chest, where things get even stranger. Your heart has its own nervous system, about 40,000 neurons forming an intricate network that can learn, remember, and make decisions. Scientists at places like Columbia University have started calling it the heart brain, and they're not being cute about it. These heart neurons don't just keep your heart beating. They're processing information, forming memories, and influencing your emotions in ways we're only beginning to understand. Your heart can actually speed up in response to danger before your brain consciously recognizes the threat. It's like having a really paranoid but highly effective bodyguard who's always one step ahead. The communication between your heart and brain is fascinating. And here's the kicker: 80% of the nerve fibers in the vagus nerve, the main highway between your heart and brain, carry information from the heart to the brain, not the other way around. Your heart is doing most of the talking in this relationship. Remember the last time you were really scared? Your heart probably started pounding before you even knew what you were afraid of. That's your heart brain detecting and responding to threats faster than your conscious mind can process them. It's evolved to keep you alive by reacting first and explaining later. But it's not just about fear. Research has shown that the timing of your heartbeat actually affects how you perceive emotions. Scientists did this wild experiment where they showed people's scary faces at different points in a cardiac cycle. Turns out, fearful faces look scarier when your heart is contracting than when it's relaxing. Your heart is literally coloring how you see the world, beat by beat. This makes so much sense when you think about expressions like heartbroken or heartfelt. These aren't just metaphors. When someone breaks your heart, those 40,000 neurons are processing that emotional pain. When you feel something deeply, your heart brain is actively involved in creating that sensation. The gut-mood connection. Here's where things get really practical. You know how some days you just feel off and you can't quite put your finger on why? Or how certain foods seem to affect your mood? That's your gut brain talking to your head brain through what scientists call the gut-brain axis. Your gut is home to trillions of bacteria, your microbiome, and these little guys are constantly producing neurotransmitters and other chemicals that affect your mood. Some bacteria make serotonin, others produce GABA, a calming neurotransmitter, and some even make dopamine. It's like having a pharmaceutical factory in your intestines, and the workers are bacteria. When this bacterial community gets out of balance, maybe from antibiotics, stress, or a poor diet, it can literally cause depression and anxiety. This isn't some alternative medicine theory. Major studies have found specific patterns of gut bacteria in people with depression. Certain bacteria that produce mood-regulating chemicals are often missing or reduced in depressed individuals. One study that really struck me looked at over 1,000 people and found 13 specific types of bacteria associated with depression. These weren't random bacteria either. They were ones involved in producing neurotransmitters like serotonin and GABA. When these bacteria are missing, your internal pharmacy can't produce the chemicals you need to feel good. The implications are huge. We've been treating depression as purely a brain problem, throwing antidepressants at it and hoping for the best. But what if some cases of depression are actually gut problems? What if we could treat them with probiotics or dietary changes instead of or alongside traditional medications? I've seen this firsthand with a friend who struggled with anxiety for years. Nothing seemed to help much until she started taking specific probiotics and changed her diet to feed beneficial gut bacteria. Within a few months, her anxiety decreased dramatically. Her psychiatrist was skeptical at first, but couldn't argue with the results. When your gut bacteria go rogue. But here's the slightly scary part. Your gut bacteria can also work against you. When harmful bacteria take over, they produce compounds that trigger inflammation. This inflammation doesn't just stay in your gut. Inflammatory signals travel through your blood to your brain, where they can trigger or worsen mental health issues. Think about the last time you had food poisoning or stomach bug. You probably felt mentally foggy, maybe even depressed or anxious. That wasn't just because you felt physically sick. Those harmful bacteria were literally producing chemicals that affected your brain function. Some bacteria are particularly nasty when it comes to mental health. Researchers have found that people with anxiety disorders often have more fusobacteria and certain Bacteroidetes strains, while having fewer beneficial Firmicutes species. It's like having troublemakers outnumbering the peacekeepers in your gut neighborhood. The good news? You can influence this bacterial community. Every meal you eat is essentially a vote for which bacteria get to thrive. Fiber feeds the good guys. Sugar and processed foods feed the troublemakers. It's a daily election happening in your intestines, and you're casting the ballots with your fork. However, changing your gut bacteria isn't always simple. These communities are surprisingly stable, and it can take consistent effort over weeks or months to shift the balance. But when you do, the effect can be profound. People report not just better digestion, but improved mood, clearer thinking, and even changes in food cravings as their bacterial population shifts. The mystery of transplanted memories. This next part might sound like science fiction, but it's documented medical fact. When people receive heart transplants, some of them report experiencing personality changes that seem to come from their donors. And I'm not talking about vague feelings. I mean specific preferences, habits, and even apparent memories they never had before. One case that really stuck with me involved a college professor who received the heart of a police officer who'd been shot in the face. After the transplant, the professor started having vivid dreams about a bright light and seeing Jesus. Later, when he met the donor's widow, she confirmed these were exactly the kinds of things her husband had talked about experiencing in his final moments. How does a heart carry memories? We're still figuring that out. About 6% of heart transplant patients report distinct personality changes they directly attribute to their new heart. Another 15% notice changes but think it's just from the life-altering experience of nearly dying and getting a second chance. But here's what really surprised researchers. When they looked at all organ transplants, not just hearts, about 90% of recipients reported some kind of personality change. These changes aren't subtle. People suddenly crave foods they used to hate. A woman who never liked beer suddenly can't get enough of it. Turns out her donor was a beer enthusiast. A health-conscious dancer receives a heart and starts craving Kentucky Fried Chicken, the donor's favorite food. These aren't coincidences that happen once or twice. They happen often enough that scientists have to take them seriously. The working theory involves something called cellular memory. Every cell in your body, not just neurons, might be capable of storing information. Through chemical modifications to DNA and proteins, cells could theoretically encode experiences, preferences, and behavioral patterns. When you transplant an organ, you're not just moving tissue. You're potentially transferring years of encoded information. Think about what this means. Your heart's 40,000 neurons have been learning your emotional patterns your entire life. They know how you respond to stress, what makes you happy, what scares you. If that heart goes into someone else's chest, could those patterns influence the new owner? The evidence suggests yes, though we don't fully understand how. Your three brains in conversation. So how do these three brains actually talk to each other? It's not like they're sending emails. The communication happens through multiple channels simultaneously, and it's happening right now as you process what you're reading. The vagus nerve is the main highway, especially between your gut and brain. It's like a massive fiber optic cable carrying signals in both directions. But remember, 80% of those fibers carry information upward from your gut to your brain. Your gut is doing most of the talking, constantly updating your brain about what's happening in your digestive system, what nutrients are available, and what your bacterial population is up to. Then there's chemical communication through your bloodstream. Those neurotransmitters produced in your gut don't all stay there. Some enter your blood and can influence your brain directly. Short-chain fatty acids, produced when good bacteria ferment fiber, can actually cross the blood-brain barrier and affect how your neurons function. It's like your gut bacteria having a direct line to your thoughts. Your immune system is another communication channel. When your gut is inflamed or when bad bacteria take over, immune cells release inflammatory molecules called cytokines. These can travel to your brain and trigger depression, anxiety, or just that general feeling of being mentally foggy. You know that blah feeling you get when you're getting sick? That's your immune system affecting your brain. The timing of all this communication is incredible. Your heart can respond to emotional stimuli in about 0.5 seconds. Your gut takes a bit longer, maybe a few seconds to minutes. But your conscious brain, it might take several seconds to even become aware of what your other brains have already responded to. By the time you consciously feel afraid, your heart is already sped up, your gut is already tightened, and your body is already preparing to run or fight. Learning to listen to your other brains. Here's something I've learned the hard way. Ignoring your gut feelings and heart sensations is usually a mistake. These aren't random sensations. They're sophisticated neural networks processing information and trying to guide your decisions. I used to be terrible at this. I'd override every gut feeling with logic, dismiss heart sensations as just anxiety, and wonder why I kept making bad decisions. Then I started paying attention. When my gut tightened during a meeting, I'd note what was being discussed. When my heart raced around certain people, I'd consider why. Patterns emerged that my conscious mind had been missing. Your gut brain is particularly good at pattern recognition. It's been dealing with food and bacteria for millions of years of evolution. It knows when something is off, even if it can't explain why in words. That gut feeling about a person or situation might be your enteric nervous system picking up on subtle chemical or behavioral cues that your conscious mind missed. Similarly, your heart brain excels at emotional assessment. Those 40,000 neurons have been tracking your emotional responses your whole life. When your heart feels heavy around someone or light and excited around another, it's processing emotional information faster than your thinking brain can analyze it. Actually, let me correct that. Your heart brain isn't just faster, it's processing different information, while your head brain is analyzing words and visible behaviors. Your heart is picking up on microexpressions, voice tones, and electromagnetic fields. Yes, hearts generate electromagnetic fields that extend several feet from your body and can influence other people's hearts. The food mood highway. Want to know something that'll change how you think about lunch? What you eat doesn't just affect your gut, it directly influences your mood and mental clarity, usually within hours. This isn't just about blood sugar spikes and crashes. It's about feeding the right bacteria and triggering the right neural responses in your gut brain. Certain foods are basically antidepressants. Foods rich in tryptophan, like turkey, eggs, and cheese, provide the raw materials for serotonin production. Fermented foods like yogurt, kimchi, and sauerkraut deliver beneficial bacteria directly to your gut. Prebiotic foods like garlic, onions, and bananas feed the good bacteria already there. On the flip side, some foods are mood killers. Excessive sugar feeds harmful bacteria and causes inflammation. Processed foods often lack the nutrients your gut bacteria need to produce mood-regulating neurotransmitters. And artificial sweeteners? Some studies suggest they can actually alter your gut bacteria in ways that promote anxiety and depression. I experimented with this myself last year. For 1 month, I ate a diet specifically designed to support gut bacteria. Lots of fiber, fermented foods, minimal sugar, and processed stuff. The first week was rough. Changing your gut bacteria can cause temporary digestive upset. But by week 3, I felt mentally clearer than I had in years. My afternoon energy crashes disappeared. My mood was more stable. Even my sleep improved. The Mediterranean diet keeps coming up in research as particularly good for the gut-brain axis. It's rich in fiber, omega-3 fatty acids, and polyphenol, all things that beneficial gut bacteria love. People following this diet show better mental health outcomes and more diverse gut bacteria. It's not just about living longer, it's about feeling better mentally while you're alive. When connection breaks down, sometimes the communication between your 3 brains breaks down, and the results can be serious. Irritable bowel syndrome, for instance, isn't just a gut problem, it's a disorder of gut-brain communication. The signals get crossed, amplified, or misinterpreted, leading to pain, digestive issues, and often anxiety or depression. Cardiac anxiety is another example. After a heart event, some people become hyper-aware of their heartbeat. Their brain starts misinterpreting normal heart sensations as dangerous, creating a feedback loop of anxiety that makes the heart beat faster, which creates more anxiety. The heart brain and head brain end up in a dysfunctional conversation that can be hard to break. But here's the hopeful part. We're developing treatments that target these communication pathways. Vagus nerve stimulation, where electrical impulses are used to activate the vagus nerve, has shown promise for treating depression that doesn't respond to regular antidepressants. It's literally jump-starting the conversation between gut and brain. Probiotics are being developed as psychobiotics, specific bacterial strains that can improve mental health. Certain lactobacillus and bifidobacterium strains have shown antidepressant effects in clinical trials. Imagine treating depression with yogurt instead of Prozac. We're not quite there yet, but we're moving in that direction. Even meditation and breathing exercises work partly by improving communication between your three brains. Deep breathing activates the vagus nerve, sending calming signals from your gut to your brain. It's not just all in your head, you're literally activating neural pathways that connect your three brains. When your body knows before you do, you know those moments when you just know something without knowing how you know? That's your three brains working together, processing information below your conscious awareness. Scientists call it interoception, your ability to sense internal bodily signals. And it turns out, people who are better at this make better decisions. Researchers have tested this with gambling experiments. They hook people up to measure skin conductance, basically how sweaty your palms get, while they play card games with hidden patterns. Here's the wild part. People's bodies figure out the pattern and start showing stress responses to bad decks before their conscious minds catch on. Their gut and heart brains are screaming, "Don't pick that deck," while their head brain is still trying to figure out the rules. Some people are naturally better at listening in studies. They can accurately count their heartbeats without taking their pulse. These same people tend to be better at reading emotions, making financial decisions, and even playing poker. They're not psychic, they're just better at hearing what their other brains are telling them. I've started practicing this myself. Once a day, I sit quietly and try to count my heartbeats without touching my pulse. At first, I was terrible at it, but after a few weeks, I got better, and something interesting happened. I started noticing other internal sensations more clearly too. That slight gut tightness when something's off. The subtle heart flutter when I'm excited about an idea. These signals were always there. I just wasn't listening. The future of three-brain medicine. We're on the edge of a medical revolution here. Instead of treating the brain, heart, and gut as separate systems, doctors are starting to see them as an interconnected network. And this changes everything about how we approach health. Take depression. We've been throwing SSRIs at it for decades, trying to fix serotonin levels in the brain. But if 90% of serotonin is made in the gut, maybe we've been looking in the wrong place. Some psychiatrists are now prescribing specific diets and probiotics alongside traditional medications. They're treating the gut to heal the mind. Cardiologists are recognizing that heart health isn't just about cholesterol and blood pressure. The heart's neural network can be damaged by chronic stress and trauma, affecting its rhythm and function. Some cardiac rehabilitation programs now include stress reduction and emotional therapy, treating the heart's emotional brain along with its pumping function. Actually, let me walk that back a bit. We're not quite at a revolution yet. Most doctors still treat organs in isolation, but the research is piling up and practices are slowly changing. In 10 years, I bet checking your gut bacteria will be as routine as checking your blood pressure. The really exciting stuff is happening in research labs. Scientists are developing ways to map the real-time communication between your three brains using advanced imaging. They can watch your gut brain react to food, see your heart brain respond to emotions, and track how these signals influence your head brain's decisions. It's like watching a three-way conversation in neural fireworks. Practical tips for three brain health. So what can you actually do with all this information? Here's what I've learned works. First, feed your gut brain well. This means fiber, lots of it. Aim for 30 different plant foods per week. It sounds like a lot, but herbs and spices count. Add fermented foods daily. Your gut bacteria are like pets. Feed them right, and they'll take care of you. Second, listen to your heart brain. When your heart races or feels heavy, don't just dismiss it as anxiety. Ask what it might be telling you. Sometimes it's warning you about a person or situation your conscious mind wants to trust. Sometimes it's telling you to pursue something that excites you, even if it seems illogical. Third, strengthen the communication channels. Deep breathing, meditation, and even singing activate the vagus nerve. Cold showers do too, though that's not for everyone. Regular exercise improves blood flow to all three brains and enhances the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which helps neurons communicate better. Here's a weird one that actually works. Talk to your gut. Not out loud, unless you want strange looks, but mentally check in with it. Before meals, take a moment to sense what your gut actually wants. You might be surprised how often it disagrees with what your eyes or taste buds are demanding. However, don't go overboard with this. You still need your logical brain for plenty of decisions. The goal isn't to always follow your gut or heart, but to include their input in your decision-making process. Think of it as having two additional advisors in your personal board of directors. The bigger picture, understanding that we have three brains, changes some fundamental assumptions about what it means to be human. We're not just rational beings who happen to have emotions. We're complex networks of interconnected neural systems, each contributing to our experience of consciousness. This explains why purely logical approaches to life often fail. Why you can't just think your way out of depression. Why affirmations don't work if your gut is inflamed and producing anxiety-inducing chemicals. Why heartbreak physically hurts. We're not computers with bodies attached. We're integrated systems where gut health affects thoughts, heart rhythms influence emotions, and mental states alter digestion. It also validates a lot of ancient wisdom. Many traditional medicine systems have long recognized the importance of gut health for mental well-being. The idea of thinking with your heart appears in cultures worldwide. These weren't primitive misunderstandings. They were observations of real phenomena that science is just now explaining. Think about the implications for education, for instance. Kids diagnosed with ADHD or learning disabilities might actually have gut-brain axis problems. Instead of just medicating them, what if we address their diet and gut health? Some schools are already experimenting with this, seeing improvements in focus and behavior when they improve school lunch programs. Or consider the justice system. If gut bacteria can influence decision-making and impulse control, should we consider gut health in criminal justice? It sounds far-fetched, but some researchers are seriously exploring these connections, living as a three-brain being. So here we are. You're not one brain controlling a body. You're three interconnected neural networks, each with its own form of intelligence, working together to create your experience of being alive. Your gut feelings are real neural computations. Your heartfelt emotions involve actual neural processing. Your logical thoughts are just one voice in a three-part harmony. This knowledge is both liberating and challenging. Liberating because it explains so much about why we feel and act the way we do. Challenging because it means taking care of our mental health requires more than just managing our thoughts. Next time you have a big decision to make, try this. First, think it through logically. Make your pro and con lists. Then, sit quietly and notice what your gut tells you. Is there tightness or ease? Finally, sense what your heart says. Does it feel light or heavy about each option? You now have three sources of intelligence weighing in. Sometimes they'll agree. Great. Sometimes they'll conflict. That's actually great too. It means you're getting different perspectives on a complex situation. The conflict itself is information worth considering. We're just beginning to understand these connections. Who knows what we'll discover in the next decade? Maybe we'll find that other organs have their own neural networks. Maybe we'll develop ways to directly enhance communication between our three brains. Maybe we'll finally understand consciousness itself by studying how these distributed networks create our unified experience of self. For now, though, you can start with this. You have three brains. They're all intelligent. They're all trying to help you navigate life. And learning to listen to all three might just be the key to better health, better decisions, and a better understanding of what makes you human. Trust your gut, follow your heart, and use your head. Turns out that's not just good advice, it's neuroscience.